The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the policy or position of ONTV's management, staff, or board of directors.
Detroit basketball.
And hello and welcome into Views from the Sideline. I'm your host, Joey Tysick, my partner, Malik Hill. We're back and we're ready. And we're better than ever.
Everybody, on.
Sorry.
I'm on.
Forgot that you're on the other mic.
Started off with a error. That's a good way to
Hey,
start.
man, it's almost been a month since we did like our last show, and I didn't even realize it.
Yep.
That's mostly my fault. I've been either...
It's not really your fault. You can't
Well,
control
yeah,
what happens.
I mean, I've been quarantining for a while. One for close contact and one for a negative test, but I was sick, so I wanted everybody to stay safe. So I quarantined myself. So I've been quarantined for 2 weeks. Then I came back for a day, and then I quarantined for another week and a half.
It's 2020.
So, you know,
Everything is up in the air at all times. We never know what's going to happen.
it's been a little bit crazy. But we came back at the perfect time. NBA just had its one of the craziest and most fun weeks that I feel like I've ever had in the NBA. Because we went right from the draft right into free agency, and it's been ridiculous. And this draft we already talked about was going to be crazy because of the uncertainty and not really knowing like who's going to emerge from this draft as the best guy.
Yeah. The big question was who was taking Alexei Pokashevsky, and we found out
I
in
didn't know of him
in
before.
the mid to late round. We found out Joey finally
Yeah, we'll get to that one.
the number one prospect in the draft.
And I think the other thing that's probably most exciting and most surprising to people maybe that were unsure about Troy Weaver, although we suspected that maybe something was going to happen, but maybe not to this extent. Troy Weaver made a lot of moves.
Well, you want to talk about the draft first?
Yeah.
We should probably do
Well,
that.
that goes into the
Yeah.
draft. But
started off well.
just as a predecessor, Troy Weaver is trying to do something. And that's exciting for Detroit fans.
I think you should probably say that line one more time because that's probably the exact way, the best way to describe it. He's trying to do. Say that word again, please.
I don't even know what I said. What did I say?
You said he's trying to do something
Yeah.
because nobody knows what he's trying to do.
Something. That's true.
It looks like it might be a rebuild, but
It better be.
Something is happening.
It better be a rebuild.
Something is definitely happening.
All right. So, right away, let's start with the draft. Not as crazy as we thought. Going into draft night, there were some rumors that maybe there would be a shakeup in the top three or that somebody would try to move up to go get LaMelo, something like that. Unfortunately, none of that happened. Top three kind of went as advertised. Anthony Edwards, first overall to the Timberwolves. James Wiseman going second overall to the Warriors, who lost Klay Thompson for this upcoming season because of a torn Achilles. Super unfortunate for the Warriors when a lot of people are excited to see them coming back this year.
Yeah.
I think they'll still be competitive, but they're not going to be that surefire talent that we know from like the Splash Brothers.
That news kind of took some air out of the draft for me because they announced it like right before the draft, didn't they?
Yeah.
Like as soon as the draft started, it was like, oh, Clay's out for the year.
Yeah, more and
and
more
then it was
info.
like, well, I expected the Wiseman thing, even though it was all up in the air. We didn't know
Yeah.
where each player would go. If James Wiseman went to Golden State, I was so excited to see that team with everybody back, including Klay.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as the draft starts, we find out Klay is out for the year. And even now, I'm still excited James Wiseman is with them, but it doesn't feel the same. It just, it takes some excitement out of everything, even though it's still exciting.
Yeah. And they did trade for Kelly Oubre to kind of make up for it, I guess. We'll see. They got talent. They got Kelly Oubre, they got Andrew Wiggins, but they're all kind of unknown quantities,
They
I
got
guess.
Steph back.
Yeah.
And fully healthy Steph can take you places.
Right. So if the other guys can step up, they can definitely make some noise, but it's going to be an uphill battle, that's for sure. Number 3, the kind of quote unquote prized possession of the draft, I guess. The guy that everybody knows, LaMelo Ball, went number 3 overall to Michael Jordan's Charlotte Hornets. Hopefully we'll get to see LeVar versus MJ in a one-on-one. I don't think it's going to happen. But hey, we can always hope.
Y'all can hope.
Yeah.
I don't listen to LeVar as much as people really do. I don't understand why people listen to him so much. But yeah.
So that'll be a fun one to watch. We'll see how LaMelo does in the NBA with a lot of question marks in the air, but definitely has a lot of upside. So we'll have to see. Biggest surprise of the draft, which, I mean, I guess it wasn't the biggest surprise if you were watching Twitter as the week went on. But Patrick Williams, bench player off of Florida State, going number 4 overall to the Bulls.
Let's not say like bench player.
Hey, I'm just saying.
Let's not say it like he's a 5th-year senior just excited to be on the team. He was a 5-star prospect. He was the 6th man, basically.
Yeah.
And the starting 5 was all veterans. So it is what it is. He played his role.
Right.
Coming off the bench as a 6th man in college, averaging, I think he had averaged like 9 and 5.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
It's not terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reason that he went up draft board so quickly is his athleticism, his frame, his style. I mean, he's 6'8", 225, is the wing. Like, he fits this day's NBA mold. So a lot of people thought that, they're going to be able to mold him into a great NBA player. So we'll have to see. That's a really interesting one. And in this draft, I don't think it doesn't really hurt, because to take a swing on a guy, like, everybody's taking swings in this draft. Like, there's a lot of talent. I've said it multiple times. I think there's a lot of talent in this draft, but nobody knows who's going to be the one to produce out of this draft class necessarily.
To me, you already know how I feel about Patrick Williams. There were Pistons rumors on him. And
Yeah.
It bugged me for the few weeks before the draft.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with Patrick Williams for me is the one word that people use 50 times during the draft: potential, nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
And for some guys, I'm like, yeah, I see it. He could become a star. But they use it so much for guys that clearly have there's so much that has to go into like raw talent. Like Patrick Williams, he's nothing close to a finished product.
Right.
He doesn't have much of an offensive game. Yeah, he has a big body, but he's not like a great defender. There's so much development that has to go into him. And people are like, "Oh, potential 4th pick. He should be the 4th pick."
Yeah.
And I just don't see it like other people do.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And for a team like the Pistons potentially going after that, I think that in the NBA you can only have one project player at a time. The Pistons already have Sekou, so
Like I can understand
gone,
I can understand the Pistons taking Sekou last year.
right.
Yeah.
And if they didn't take Sekou last year, that maybe they take Patrick Williams this year. Like, that kind of makes sense. For me, I feel like you can't have more than one project player at a time. That's just how I feel. And right now, I mean, Chicago doesn't really have any project players. Most of their young guys are working out, and you can tell that they're getting better each and every week. So, I mean, to take a swing on that, maybe it moves the needle for them a little bit, but Chicago isn't going anywhere anytime soon necessarily. They're still going to take a couple years, I think, to get going.
Well, their fans are hoping they can get to the playoffs with that young, talented roster.
Yeah.
Especially since after the 7th seed in the East, seeing that what the Hawks did, we'll get to the Hawks soon.
I mean, maybe Chicago should just start cheering for the Lions too. We'll see. Okay, 5th overall, Isaac Okoro, going to the Cavs. He's another one that started shooting up draft boards. I felt like as we got closer and closer to the draft, could have gone almost anywhere after those top 3. So it was interesting to see him go to Cleveland at 5.
I love his fit there, but Cleveland has been directionless. Without LeBron, they've never had direction. So,
and with the swirling rumors constantly of are they going to get rid of Kevin Love, never really coming to fruition or anything. And then, I mean, this happened later, but they got rid of Tristan Thompson, ended up getting JaVale McGee. Like, they need bigs on that team.
Andre Drummond and JaVale McGee as your centers.
I forgot about Andre.
Yes.
I'm glad I forgot about
He
Andre.
opted back in, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Let's not forget.
He wants to stay in
He wants the
Cleveland.
bag.
Let him stay there. 6th overall, saving the Pistons from making a mistake. The Atlanta Hawks take Onyeka Okongwu, which we were very nervous at the Pistons.
You sure that would have been a mistake?
Yeah.
Instead of You prefer Isaiah Stewart? Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm saying to their first round pick, Malik. Come on. Get with the program. Jeez. No, I don't want them picking Okongwu at 7. If potentially
I'm
he fell
surprised he
back,
didn't go top 5.
why not? I mean, he's gonna be great. I mean, he's an athletic defensive big. I'm sure his offensive game isn't that bad, but he can definitely improve there. And for Atlanta, it's like they're another team that's been doing really good with their drafting recently. And so
This is a weird one, honestly.
it's a little bit weird, but at the same time, I feel like it makes a little bit of sense to just have like maybe more of a defensive guy for their bigs. Like Clint Capella's pretty good. I think though they lost. Did they recently have Alex Len, or was that
Yeah.
way back? Yeah, they just had Alex Len, and they got rid of him.
But
I think that was after.
They traded for Clint Capella.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
so they have Capella, John Collins. So like, I think they need big depth at least. Like, and obviously we'll get to it later, but it looks like they weren't looking at any guards or forwards, because that's what they were going to do in free agency and other moves. But here we go. Let's get into the Pistons. Picking 7th overall, the Pistons had a lot of options. Obi Toppin had fallen in the draft. Denny Avdija.
A lot of people were going crazy and wanted Obi once he fell to the Pistons.
Yeah, and there was a chance that I kind of wanted him. And Tyreese Halliburton was up in the air.
You know who I liked from the start, and it happened.
Yeah,
I was actually kind of surprised that they ended up taking him. I assume they might take Halliburton, but since they're on a rebuilding team, I think you take a shot on a guy like this.
Yeah, I agree.
Who he's somewhat of a project, but he can give you some production right now.
Yeah. So with the 7th pick in the NBA draft, the Pistons selected Killian Hayes. He played over in Germany and France. One of the better high school players of his draft class.
He was born in
Coming out.
America.
Yeah.
Born in Florida.
Right.
But grew up in France.
Yeah, and he went to go play overseas. Like I said, he's just coming out of high school. He was one of the best talents, and he chose to go play overseas, similar to an RJ Hampton. So, kind of like LaMelo as well. There's hesitation from people to just be like, oh, he's ready for the NBA. It's kind of a toss up, and it's going to be really interesting to see. Killian Hayes he's a big frame. He's 6'5", almost 200 pounds. So by the time the season rolls around, I assume he'll be probably a little bit of 200, a little over 200. I'm sure he'll bulk up before the season starts. So that's super interesting. I'm excited because they needed a point guard. Like we said, Halliburton or Killian Hayes is what I wanted. Even with Obi Toppin falling and Denny Avdija falling, I get a lot of people wanted Obi, and I get it. And I kind of did too, just for the safe pick, because, in our minds, it's scary to watch the Pistons draft. And I would have been okay with a safe pick. And then on the side for Denny, I saw there was a lot of people that wanted him too, because of, the recent surge with like Luka and these overseas prospects. But at the same time, like I just said, I don't want another project guy potentially. I don't assume that he's going to be as good as Luka, where he just steps in and he just starts running away with
Luka
things.
is beyond a one of a kind special.
Yeah. And I mean, I would have been fine if they picked Denny as well, though, because his value, he was like top 5 pick going into the draft. I mean, he's 6'9", 225. He plays like almost every position.
I disagree on that one, but
on the what? On
the Denny thing. He's the one of the one foreigners I don't really believe in this draft.
Yeah.
I like Killian primarily because I feel like when you watch his highlights and watch film of him, he has a pro style he doesn't play like compare him to Frank Ntilikina, another young guy that came out of France a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He was so raw coming over. He didn't have an offensive game. He didn't really have a jumper. It was all, he's a really good defender, and then you have to build on everything else.
Yeah.
With Killian, this is a guy who he plays very well in a pick and roll. He's a smooth lefty. He shoots I think he shot 85% from the free throw line. So that shows his jumper can continue to get better. He has a good looking jumper already from distance. And he has a really good gift for passing already. He has a whole bunch of offensive gifts that you can build on, and he plays hard on defense.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things together, that's great stuff to build on from the jump.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to be like nervous and like afraid of NBA basketball. He plays at his own pace. People don't really speed him up. I really like his game.
Couple other notable ones before we get into the Pistons' next pick. Jalen Smith going at 10, I thought was actually a surprise.
Yeah.
I really was hoping that the Pistons would get him for their second pick in the first round. And like I said, we'll get to that. I felt like he's a perfect anchor for a team.
He's a legit stretch five.
Yeah.
He shot like 40% from three last year.
Right. And he's just long.
Yeah.
Great just kind of overall talent. I think it's maybe a little bit of a stretch to go 10, but for Phoenix, they just got Chris Paul and everything. So
they lost Aaron Baines too. So
right.
They had to make sure their guy didn't drop.
Yeah.
They had to get the best value at that position they could.
Yeah. Tyreese Halliburton goes 12th overall.
I think his fit with De'Aaron Fox could be really good.
Yeah.
Depending on how Luke Walton coaches, because we never know.
I was gonna say it depends because it's hard to do these 2 point guard kind of systems sometimes. As we've seen with Cleveland, it's kind of not gone anywhere yet, but we'll see. My Pelicans, they picked up Kira Lewis Jr. A little bit weird, but I like it at the same time. I feel like it's stancing them to move away from Lonzo Ball because they are guard heavy on this team.
I've heard every analyst I've heard say him and Kyra Lewis could play well together. So I honestly have no idea what they're going to do at this point.
Well,
because everybody's saying they're perfect balance.
People also forget that they did get Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah.
They traded away Drew Holiday, as many expected. They got Eric Bledsoe, so maybe they move on from Eric Bledsoe now. There could be more moves in the making is all I'm thinking. Another unfortunate one, Aaron Nesmith went 14th to the Celtics. Another
you
pick
say that's okay.
For the Pistons. I would have loved for the Pistons to pick him up. I think it's great for Boston, honestly, just add another shooter.
I think the Celtics, a lot of people were kind of angry about, a lot of Celtics fans were kind of angry about that draft because they didn't get a big man and they expected Boston to trade up and everything. Getting him, and I think Peyton Pritchard is going to surprise people.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed high at the time, and I kind of raised my eyebrows at it too. But him as the backup point guard in Boston, I think he could really help.
Yeah. Orlando gets another point guard, Cole Anthony. They just let go of DJ Augustine. So Cole Anthony,
he's the guy.
I mean, him and Markelle Fultz are going to be battling for that starting job, which would be interesting. It would be cool to see if Markelle Fultz can finally get to like a competitive stat.
Well,
like,
he was last year.
Yeah,
he finally started playing
right.
really good basketball last year.
Yeah, so
I
maybe
think they'll keep him at the point guard position. They might play him and Cole together.
Yeah, could be. Here's where the Pistons draft got a little bit weird. And
very, very weird. Don't undersell it.
So the Pistons got the 16th pick from the Rockets. And we were so surprised and super excited. Now, this happened pretty early in the draft. I think it was pretty quickly after the Pistons had picked 7. So this is where we started thinking, oh, maybe Jalen Smith, maybe an Aaron Nesmith. Both of those guys got taken. So it was pretty heartbreaking. Those would have been perfect fits. I feel like I would have been super happy with the draft. This is my one blemish, I think, on the Pistons draft is right here. They go for Isaiah Stewart out of Washington. 6'9" center, 250. He's a big bruiser kind of guy, and he's like a chip on his shoulder dude. I mean, yeah, he fits the Detroit mold, I guess.
They could have got him in the second round. If they wanted. He wasn't going in the first round.
I feel like if anything, they could have.
I would have taken Vernon Carey ahead of him.
I agree.
And I said that, at the time.
Yep,
Yeah.
and I totally agree with you. I think Vernon Carey would have been a better fit. A little bit bigger in frame, maybe a little bit more ready to go.
And he dropped over 30 pounds so that he can be a better fit for the NBA and run up and down.
Yeah.
So
even maybe my boy Alexei Pokashevsky, 7-footer.
You said you don't want to take risk on projects.
I mean, I feel like Isaiah Stewart's kind of a project, so.
I don't believe that. You're getting exactly what you see in Isaiah Stewart. I don't think there's a high ceiling. I don't think it's a very low floor.
Yeah.
I think you're getting he's gonna play tough. He can give you some points if you need it. There's nothing like special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, crazy enough, the Pistons got another pick in the first round. They picked at 19. And this one, I was a little unsure about at first, mostly just because I didn't watch Villanova last year very much. They got Sadiq Bey, 6'8", small forward, 216
Yeah.
pounds, kind of a 3-and-D kind of guy.
He is a glue piece.
Yeah, so
And for his age, I think it's a phenomenal pick. And I said it at the time.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, we zoomed.
yeah, we
during
even
the draft.
we even brought in Chris.
Yeah.
Haven't seen that kid in a while, so we all kind of sat around, watched the draft.
Yeah, this is a pick I really love for the Pistons.
Yeah, and I was questionable on it at first, but the more I've looked into it, the more I've thought about it, I'm good with it. I think it'll fit nicely. I've looked at the depth chart. It seems like he's gonna fit in to back some people up, and I think he could be good going into the future. Any other notable picks?
I think the Dallas Mavericks draft
That you
was
wanna talk
insanely
about?
great. They took Josh Green in the first round. I can't remember which pick it was. But yeah, they took Josh Green out of Arizona.
That was 18. That was just
Yeah.
before Pistons picked.
2-guard with a big body. He's crazy athletic and he can shoot. He's going to fit in so well. And then at the top of the second round, I'm surprised this guy didn't go late first. Tyrell Terry out of Stanford. They
Mhm.
lose Del Curry. They lose
Seth Curry.
all I can think is Dell and Steph.
Seth Curry.
They lose Seth Curry. They bring in Tyrell Terry. I think he might not get a large amount of minutes from the jump, but they re-signed Trey Burke to a 3-year contract. He's still Luka's backup. Give Tyrell Terry time. He's a fantastic 3-point shooter. He's a really good passer. He's sneaky athletic. I think in a few years he can be one of the best backups in the league,
Mhm.
if not starting for a team. So
Um,
I think a great draft from them.
one other notable one, well, not notable, but the Pistons got another pick in this draft. They traded for a second-round pick at 38.
I forgot about that one.
They went with Sabin Lee. This was another one that I feel like you were definitely a lot more excited about.
I was kind of back and forth on it.
Right.
Because I've watched him so much at Vanderbilt the past few years.
Mhm.
I know what he is, and he could probably contribute, but it's also like he could be a G League player for a long time.
Yeah. So they went with Sabin Lee from Vanderbilt, 6'2", 183 pounds.
He's an explosive guard.
Yeah, I'm just not 100% sure with the fit. I would have rather gone with more of a shooting guard, athletic kind of guy,
They could've-
especially after they traded my boy Luke Kennard on draft night, which that was my moment of silence for Luke. He's going to the Clippers, though, so he's going to be on a winning team, so I can't feel too bad.
They could have taken Isaiah Joe out of Arkansas,
Um,
and he fell to Philly, who I also think had a great draft. Getting Tyrese Maxey and Isaiah Joe.
Well, the one that I was disappointed at is because, and I know he's another one of those kind of somewhat raw pieces, and he's a one-and-done guy. Nobody's 100% sure. I really wanted the Pistons to take Cassius Stanley there at 38.
And I agreed with that. Yes, I agree.
Big-bodied shooting guard, jumps out of the gym like crazy.
He didn't go until 54, I think,
Yeah.
to Indiana.
He went to
Yeah.
54 to Indiana, which I feel like for Indiana is a steal.
Amazing.
Like,
Great value.
they have so many pieces already. Like, they're a playoff team. So to get somebody like that on their bench, I think is great for them. I would have loved to see it for the Pistons, though, where he could have maybe got some more time. And then it just gives more electricity off the bench, I felt like, than Sabin Lee, who, like we said, we probably won't see him for a while, if at all. So, I don't know. A little bit questionable. Let's see. The Warriors got Nico Mannion,
That
So-
was a really good pick to me.
which I always think
Yeah,
is really
that was a
interesting to
good
watch
pick.
who the Warriors get. And Nico is one of those guys too that he was at one point projected he could have gone late first round, and so his draft meter was all over the place.
I saw like mid lottery on some
yeah,
draft boards. Like before the college season started, I saw him in like the 13 to 16 range.
yeah,
Because he is that talented.
right. And he's a really good like floor general and can score, but like his athleticism isn't crazy off the charts or anything.
It's not crazy off the charts, but it's extremely. I saw him like have some dunks in the half court set that a lot
Yeah.
of people didn't see coming.
It's
If
better.
if you don't expect it, he'll dunk on you.
Yeah, it's better than people expect, and I think
Yeah.
those question marks kind of hampered his draft a little bit. Another one that I actually like too is Atlanta at 50 taking Skylar Mays. I liked him at LSU. He's a big guard. He can play point. He's more of a shooting guard, but he can play some point. So to kind of give a backup, even though the Hawks did end up getting Rajon Rondo, but being able to play alongside a guy like Rajon Rondo, Skylar Mays, I think a pretty decent pick there.
I think he's a guy you can give minutes right now and he'll produce.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever you need him to do.
Mm-hmm. Cassius Winston going 53 overall, going to the Wizards.
Wasn't at first it was the pick originally OKC's.
Yeah.
And then I thought he got drafted to OKC, and my first thought was I love that fit.
Yeah.
But then the Wizards have so many point guards.
Yeah.
Even though Shabazz Napier is a free agent,
Mm-hmm.
John Wall's back, Ish Smith, Shabazz Napier was there.
Yeah.
The Gary Payton Jr. He's
Mhm.
still on the Wizards. I have no idea how he'll get a chance. I
Yeah.
really don't.
I agree. It's going to be interesting. Like we said, Cassius Stanley going 54 to the Pacers. Our boy Sam Merrill going 60 overall.
Our boy,
Yeah. and
our boy Sam Merrill.
he's going to the Pelicans.
How old is he? 26.
I think he was about to turn 25. He's probably 25 now,
If he plays,
which is crazy.
we might have to make a wager on this.
I think they said
'cause
he's like one of 3 or 4 players in NBA history that going into draft night, he's about to turn 25. That's insane.
if he's not just a knockdown 3-point assassin,
Mhm.
he doesn't have much use.
Yeah.
So he has to
Mm-hmm.
start taking more shots than he usually takes.
Yeah.
While working out.
It's super fun to watch at Utah State. Is he going to be be able to produce in the NBA? We'll see. I don't really think so, but hey, it was kind of funny that he even got drafted.
You didn't mention Denny to Washington at 9. How'd you feel about it?
I did, but I think only briefly. I think I just kind of glanced over it because I was talking about being in the Pistons.
I kind of like him next to John Wall and Brad Beal because he doesn't have to score from the jump.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, the Wizards are still a team that's there's potential there. They got Rui Hachimura, who played really good down the
Yeah.
stretch last season. They still have Thomas Bryant, right?
Yep.
And he's an emerging center. He's been playing really good recently. So to get John Wall back, Bradley Beal's been all-star level.
And I think they still have Troy Brown, who could start ahead of him at the 3.
Yeah. And then to have Denny in there, and if Denny's one of the first guys off the bench, then that even gives him more of a role to kind of do whatever. And yeah, I agree. I think it's a great pick. I guess we'll briefly go over the Obi Toppin in New York as well.
He was a Knicks fan.
It's really funny because going into last season, we made fun of the Knicks because they had 5 power forward signings in the offseason. And then they drafted Obi Toppin here. They did end up letting go Bobby Portis. I
Yeah.
think Taj Gibson is gone.
Bobby Portis signed with the Bucks.
Mhm.
I don't know if Taj Gibson is going to get signed.
Yeah, I don't know either.
He might be out soon.
Yeah. So they cut down on their forwards. Obviously they kept Julius Randle, and they got Mitch Robinson at the center position. So
The question is, do you think Obi is going to be starting at the 3 and they'll play Julius Randle and him together? Because I think that is going to be a really weird pairing.
I think
If they start, I think they're going to try it.
I was gonna say I think they'll give it a try. Although the weird part though now is with having Kevin Knox. Where does he fit in?
I think he
And-
might be out soon.
There's been rumors about him being involved in trades because they did just draft. They got Emmanuel quickly in the draft to hopefully pair alongside with RJ Barrett to take a little bit of the ball control off of his hands. They also re-signed Alfred Payton
They re-signed up for Peyton. They signed
because they let
Austin
him go
Rivers.
and then they signed him, and then they also got Austin
Yeah.
Rivers. So there's gonna be some moves probably with their guards and stuff because they're a little bit crowded right now. I just thought of that. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I would assume they're going to try to put him alongside Julius Randle. They do have somewhat similar games, but it will be interesting for sure. And if Quickly gets any time, plus
He
RJ
should be a
Barrett
knockdown shooter. He should be.
and Obi, that you might see these guys run the floor a lot.
They should.
And
Although with Thibodeau, his teams
That's
usually
true.
don't
That's
play like
true.
that.
that's true.
So yeah, team full of young guys. I just want to see how they play for him. Honestly, all Thibodeau
agree.
teams are expected to play hard and be invested on defense at all times. How many of these guys are about to be ready for what Tom Thibodeau wants?
Mitchell Robinson.
Well, Mitchell,
That's all I got.
His job is defense and catching lobs and getting
Yeah.
rebounds, so he's fine.
Hopefully for the Knicks, these young guys can be molded by Thibodeau because I think, obviously he's a good coach. He's proven.
Yeah.
But it's one of those guys like you said, you have to buy into his system. Any other draft things that you want to talk about before we move on to free agency?
I think we need to announce that we have our players for the draft. I'm announcing this. I'm forcing you to take this player. You will keep track of Alexei Pokashevsky for the rest of his career. Even if he ends up like back overseas in a few years, you have to keep track of him. And I am the Leandro Balmero spokesman, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
These are the European prospects that we will keep track of. This is what it is from now on.
And together we
You-
will keep track of Sam Merrill.
You have the next unicorn, the 7 foot, 195-pound guard,
Yeah.
Alexei. Apparently, there's no footage of him ever dunking. I think that is a hilarious
Yeah.
footnote on him. 7 foot doesn't dunk.
I was gonna say, what's his standing reach? It's got to be
I have no idea.
insane.
He's
so.
just long.
But do remember that
Yeah.
Kristaps was pretty thin. He wasn't this thin going into the NBA, but he's put on a lot of muscle and he's turned into
Yes.
a big dude.
Yeah.
So
I think him being in OKC is a good place too.
alrighty, another free agency. Free agency wasn't crazy. There wasn't like big names. There's Anthony Davis and stuff like
I
that.
think
But
there have been a lot of interesting moves.
Yeah.
A lot of teams have moved up. Some teams have fallen flat.
I agree. There's been a lot of shuffling, a lot of craziness. Pistons made a lot of trades.
Cornucopia of
That-
moves.
I'm not even gonna go over because there's just too many. Most of them.
Let's go over the main signings. Just
We'll get to the Pistons when we get there. I'm gonna go through like kind of the top guys first.
okay.
Anthony Davis hasn't made his decision yet.
He's coming back. To
He's kind of waiting on Giannis because Giannis has a chance to sign a supermax extension. If he doesn't sign that, that means he's gonna look for free agency next year, in which Anthony Davis may want to take a player option for this year, so that the Lakers potentially have a chance to get Giannis next season, which would be insane, and I
I'm
don't want to see
praying
it.
that
Yeah.
The only people that want to see that is Lakers fans. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, and the Bucks have made a lot of moves this offseason, I think, to try to keep Giannis. So hopefully,
They've tried
yeah,
to make a lot of moves.
yeah.
You didn't bring up the big thing. They got in a little bit of trouble. They traded the house for Drew Holiday first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Then they tried to do a under the table sign and trade
Oh yeah, I guess.
for Bogdan Bogdanovic, and he said, "I didn't sign anything.
Yeah.
What are y'all talking about? I'm going to the Bucks. No."
Mm-hmm.
And now they have Drew Holiday, and they better hope it works.
Drew Holiday's good,
he is, but
but they did.
they
Yeah.
they sent their future away
Mm-hmm.
for a player I love as well as you do. I respect Drew Holiday a lot more than a lot of players,
Mm-hmm.
but hey, man,
Yeah.
it's better work.
Brandon Ingram re-signed with the Pelicans. Thank you, appreciate it. 5 years, $158 million. Got paid.
Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell got the same supermax.
Yeah,
5
they
years,
got
195, I think.
they got
Yeah.
every bit of their bag, and well deserved, to be honest.
What did Aaron Fox get? Was
I
it
don't know.
5 years, one?
I don't
I
actually
can't remember the
numbers.
exact numbers. Yeah.
Fred VanVleet, he got a 4-year, $85 million deal. He's staying with Toronto.
Did you want him on Detroit as much as I did?
No.
Okay.
I would have been okay with it, but after they drafted
That's
Killian
what-
Hayes, I no. Gordon Hayward is moving teams from the Celtics. He's going to the Hornets, 4 years, $120 million. The Hornets have paid a lot of money to Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward in the past 2 years.
Was
But I do like this more than the Terry Rozier deal.
really
I think so, yeah.
okay?
That's just me. I mean, I guess the Hornets are trying to do something. Gordon Hayward's a good player, but he's not going to put them over the top. They're missing a lot of pieces still. The guy we were talking about, Bogdanovich, going from the Kings, not going to the Bucks, going to the Hawks, who have made a
And
lot of moves.
The Kings could have matched the offer.
They could have matched the offer, 4 years, $72 million. They chose not to.
Yeah.
So maybe the Kings are tearing the walls
And
back down again.
How much longer do you think Buddy Hield is staying?
Not much longer.
Exactly.
I don't know
So-
what his contract looks like, but wherever he goes next, they're gonna give him money because he's played well. The big surprise here too, the Pistons lost Christian Wood. And
Is it really a big surprise to you?
the way it happened, I think it was actually, because he went to Houston on a 3-year, $41 million deal, and we'll get into it in a little bit. But the Pistons, they paid somebody else similar money.
Well, it's not similar. Now that the whole contract has come
It's-
out,
It's still
3 years, 25. It's a lot for him, but it's not the same.
Yeah, I don't know. It definitely seemed like Christian Wood he must have wanted out. I don't know.
That's my theory is that he asked for a lot more than what the Rockets gave him from the Pistons.
Yeah,
I think he asked for big money, and the Pistons were like, "You're a good young player, but
yeah, and he probably
we can't put the house on you."
He said he's going to try to slap us in the face and go to Houston for less. Yeah,
exactly.
I could see my man Joe Harris going back to the Nets, 4 years, $75 million.
You think they overpaid him?
No.
A lot of people think
I
they
don't think so.
overpaid Joe Harris.
I think
He's one of the best shooters in the league.
I think
but-
he's such a good role player, and we're seeing role players get paid. So I mean, I think it's his time. Danilo Gallinari, I think this was a big move for the Hawks. They signed
Big
him
time boss move.
3 years, $61.5 million. That for sure means they're going for the playoffs.
We brought up Bogdanovich and him. Bring up the other signing that is also massive for them.
Playoff Rondo. Playoff Rondo. If you sign Rajon Rondo, you feel that you're going to make it to the playoffs.
To me, I like these moves even more than what the Lakers did. Even though the Lakers have shored up the fact that they're probably going to win 2 more championships.
Yeah.
But getting Bogdanovich, Danilo, and Rajon Rondo,
Mm-hmm.
and drafting Okongwu, and
Yep.
you have Clint Capella, like,
And you have John Collins.
who has had nobody in the East?
And they have
It's even
DeAndre
close.
Hunter.
Nobody in the East is close to having a better offseason.
Like,
than
they
them.
have a lot of depth now.
If Cam Reddish ends up being a bust, they're fine.
They have
They
Cam
are
Reddish,
fine.
too.
That's what they drafted 2 guys last year in the lottery, and if either one of them are bust, they're cool.
Yeah.
They could be like a 5th seed in the East.
I
It
still
is crazy.
I still feel bad for my man Kevin Herter, but the Hawks are a fun team. They're going to be a fun team to
Yeah.
watch. A cool signing, Goran Dragic's going back to the Heat.
He earned. I'm happy he got his.
Yeah, his
he
teammates
got
really
his-
vouched for him, which I think was cool. The big signing for the Pistons, which was honestly a really big surprise, 3 years, $60 million to Jeremy Grant.
I have
Malik's
something to say
man
about this.
in the playoffs last year.
There is not much difference between Jeremy Grant and Christian Wood,
There's really not. I agree.
and that is once they made that signing, I was like, okay, Troy Weaver. I understand. Christian Wood is 25.
Jeremy
A lot
Grant's
of people
26.
A lot of people think Jeremy Grant is 26 years old.
Mhm.
He shot better from 3 than Christian Wood did last year.
Yeah.
Right under 40. A few less rebounds, but
Yeah.
Jeremy Grant was a player off the bench that was incredibly productive for the Denver Nuggets, especially in the playoffs. He was knocked down from 3 when they needed him.
Yeah, he's been improving each and every year, and I really don't mind the signing. He can play the forward position, so he can move
That's
around
why
a little bit.
Seeing what they gave Jeremy Grant, I think Christian Wood asked for more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming he was like in the 4-year, $80 million range
Yeah.
is what he wanted.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But you're swapping players that are essentially like around the same type of player.
Yep. Davis Bertans going back to Washington, 5 years, $80 million.
Good signing for them.
I feel like that's a similar thing to Joe Harris. I mean, like, maybe you feel like he got a little bit overpaid, but
If he left, I think the Wizards would have regretted that if he
Yeah.
left.
here's the big a kind of annoying one. So going into this, the Lakers had traded for Dennis Schroeder, so he's their backup, and he's a great pickup for the Lakers. The next big pickup that they got was Montrezl Harrell.
They took the
Like-
sixth man and the guy that I thought was going to be the sixth man.
Yeah,
They got both of them.
the Clippers.
Montrezl switched sides.
The Clippers lost Montrezl Harrell for nothing, and that hurts because he's just one of those guys that he does all the dirty work. He signed 2-year, $19 million.
He just wants a championship.
Yeah, and apparently he doesn't see it with the Clippers, which I think is a bit of a surprise, but I don't know. It's kind of crazy. And he came out on Twitter and stuff trying to say that, the Clippers weren't trying to give him any money. I can't imagine the Clippers not offering him more than that. There's no way.
I think he was going for max money.
Maybe.
I guarantee he was
Maybe.
pushing for close to 100.
Yeah. I mean, it could be like a thing that we saw with DeMarcus Cousins a couple of years ago. After he came off his injury, he thought he was going to get a little bit more money. Didn't. So he just went minimum. He went to the
Yep.
Lakers.
Exactly.
Let's see. Marcus Morris going back to the Clippers. Serge Ibaka moving from the Raptors to the Clippers.
I think he's a better fit for the Clippers than Montrez, honestly. Although Montrez is younger and does, I guess, more things, but Serge he might have had his best year as a pro last year.
I mean,
High
he's,
percentage from three, like
yeah. If anything, he's a good replacement. He's a good backup plan for that. Marc Gasol going for the Lakers. I think that's a good signing for them. 2-year vet minimum.
really good replacement
just-
for JaVale McGee.
I mean, yeah. I honestly at 35, I still think it's an upgrade over JaVale. I mean, Marc Gasol is just that veteran guy, and you know what you're going to get out of him. KCP going back to LA as well. Let's see. Malik Beasley going back to the Timberwolves. We thought maybe he might move somewhere
that one,
else.
have you heard about Malik Beasley?
Mm-mm. Recently?
He might have felony charges.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. And immediately after it all happened, they gave him a 4-year, $60 million.
Well,
Things are weird in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Things are very weird in Minnesota.
some of those glue guys got Aaron Baines going over to the Raptors. I think that's
That's a really good pickup.
that's great to replace Serge. Tristan Thompson is finally leaving the Cavaliers. He's going over to Boston. I think that's pretty good for Boston, actually.
They needed a big man. I think Tristan will serve.
Just a guy that just goes gets rebounds. Jay Crowder going to the Suns. I think the Suns they're trying to make a push, and when you make a push, you try to get Jay Crowder. Another sneaky little deal I feel like is Kent Bazemore to the Warriors. I think that's
They got him back.
that's pretty good actually for them with their depth. Jordan Clarkson finally getting paid 4-year, $52 million. Let's see. I didn't realize that Langston Galloway is going to the Suns. Cool.
I just knew he was leaving the Pistons. I forgot.
I figured he would. My man Carmelo Anthony going back to the Blazers.
It's no surprise.
I'm excited for that.
I didn't, unless the Banana Boat crew was coming back together, he wasn't going anywhere else.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. Avery Bradley going to the Heat.
That's a really good signing for them.
Yep,
Yeah,
underrated.
I like it.
Um,
Bam is probably getting the Supermax. Did you see that?
yeah,
An
yeah, I
extension.
saw that.
Yeah.
Uh,
He's getting big money.
Another surprise move, Jeff Teague is going to the Celtics, which, I mean, it makes sense. They got Rondo from the Hawks and everything. Dwight Howard going to the Sixers, kind of interesting.
I think he's a good backup behind Joel.
The biggest pain in my butt for the Pistons this offseason, 3-year, $25 million to Mason Plumlee.
We're finally here. Okay.
He was all
We're
the way down
finally
at
here.
the 52nd best free agent. And this was the first one the
I-
Pistons signed.
I am also it's the money that bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
Signing him isn't a problem for me.
Yeah.
Because every move he's made, I love the Jahlil Okafor move.
Mhm.
He's still extremely young. He started to recover for the Pelicans. He played really well in the bubble. He's still, whenever you give him the ball, he's still a bucket. Everybody he's signing is like well under like 26, 27. And then he's signing a few veterans
Yeah.
to like make sure there's some leadership on the team. Even though 3 years, 25, I'd like a much less for Mason Plumlee. He could have had like 3 years, $10 million. He shouldn't
Yeah,
be making this much
he's-
money.
A perennial bench guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what you're getting out of him. Yeah, I just this signing just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, I
That's
could've-
the one move that was odd to me. Every other move I've liked from Troy Weaver.
yeah. There was so many other
Really.
centers that I feel like they could have gone for way less and just ran with
They
it.
could have given him way less.
Yeah. Well, of course. Another
They
small
signed
move.
Josh Jackson.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Yep.
get to. Another small move that's actually it's interesting. Josh Jackson coming out of his draft class, he was expected to do big things.
Yeah.
Never really got
He
there.
ended up in a bad situation, and he was immature.
Yeah.
So it was a bad mix.
Mm-hmm.
A
He had
lot-
some signs last year.
Yeah, a lot of people in Memphis are saying like he was like a great young guy in Memphis. He did everything that was needed, both
Mhm.
in the G League and when they brought him up to the Grizzlies. So my question is, he's coming back home. He's from Detroit. Is he going to get comfortable, or was Memphis a turning point?
Right.
That's my question for him.
Yeah.
So to me, if he's made a turning point, this is a fantastic signing.
Yeah.
Because he's only 22, 23 still.
23.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a low risk kind of deal.
Yeah.
For the Pistons. Let's see. See, the Pistons could have gotten Myers Leonard got 2 years, $20 million. Myers Leonard is just
Yeah.
as good as Mason Plumlee.
Yeah.
I mean,
That'll be one that'll be a puzzle for a long time.
so yeah. Not really seeing any other things. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. The Pistons did just sign Wayne Ellington back.
Oh yeah,
Is
what it is.
Yeah, it's
another veteran.
It's whatever. If you go to ESPN, I'm pretty sure it's still up like this. That if you go to the ESPN page and you go to the Pistons roster, there's literally 24 players on the Pistons roster right now.
They can't keep track of the moves right now.
Yeah, because they can't
they
even.
they still have every center listed. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they can't really figure out what's going on, and I mean neither can we. The Pistons at one point they had Tony Bradley. They had. You did bring up that they have Jahlil Okafor. That's one I kind of forgot to go over.
They got rid of Dwayne Dedman like 3 hours after they got him.
Yeah, they had traded at one point for Trevor Ariza. He's gone. Dwayne Dedman, he's gone. Langston Galloway is gone. They did get Jalen Hands. I don't think
That's an interesting sign.
I don't think they got rid of him. That was a part of a trade, I believe.
Yeah, they got Jalen Hands.
Thonmaker is gone. Rodney Magruder supposedly gone.
Good.
The Pistons also traded for Malik's boy Zanan Musa.
It's not he's not my boy.
I know.
I think he's interesting.
Yeah. Like we said, Jahlil Okafor, Mason Plumlee. They did trade for Zaire Smith. He's gone. And they also traded for Delon Wright, which I think is
I like that,
it's
yeah.
not bad.
I like it.
Another kind of veteran guy that's
I
done
think
pretty decent in recent years.
until like a week before the season, I think nobody's gonna know what the roster is.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of rumors of Blake and Derrick Rose being traded. Apparently, they tried to do a deal to send those guys over to Washington for John Wall,
Washington wants to keep him.
and
Apparently. So, yeah.
apparently Washington's they're okay. They don't want to blow it up just yet, but soon they will realize they need to. Alrighty, anything else you want to talk about the NBA before we move on?
No, nothing else. Let's get into this.
Alrighty. Crazy enough, so many months ago when this whole pandemic started, was right when the NCAA tournament got canceled. That was one of the first big events that got canceled. Put a hamper on our show just before we did our big tournament blowout show. And finally, college basketball is back. They're playing today, starting today. We've already seen Oakland play.
They got smacked.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close.
Yeah. But the exciting thing is, in just about an hour from now, Michigan's going to play Bowling Green. Michigan is ranked 25th in the polls right now. Still a young up-and-coming team with a couple veterans. And then Michigan State's going to take on Eastern. Michigan State is ranked 13th. They also have a lot of promise, even though they lost Xavier Tillman and Cassius Winston to the draft. They got Joshua Langford in his 17th year coming back. Hopefully
Did you
ready
say
to be
17th?
healthy. He's a fifth year.
I just realized what
Joshua Langford's a fifth year. But if he comes back healthy and he's ready to go, they're going to be good.
They might start him. They're expecting him to be back to what he was.
I would think
apparently.
so. Let's start with Michigan. Let's get your Wolverines out of the way.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them.
So
Because I think
year 2 of Juwan Howard.
I think they're a little bit more interesting than Michigan State at the moment. I think Michigan State, we know what we can get out of them. But this is another year for Michigan to just keep improving. They lost Xavier Simpson
John Teskey.
and John Teskey.
Who, although he had a better junior season than senior season,
Mhm.
I'm not sad to see John Teskey go.
And I'm right there with you.
Xavier Simpson meant a lot. He was the general for that team for 3 years.
And you know me about Xavier Simpson. I
Yeah.
could care less. So
yeah.
I'll give him his props.
Moving
He
on.
played good, but, I'm ready to move on from that regime.
Yeah.
What are you most excited to see from this Michigan team this year?
First of all, I'm very excited that Isaiah Livers came back. He tested the NBA waters and decided he wanted one more year with Michigan to see what could be in his senior season and what
Mhm.
this team mixed with veterans and young guys could be. He's back. Franz Wagner came back for his sophomore season. They're expected to be the two. Isaiah Livers is expected to be a leader, but they're both expected to be like the go-to guys, the scorers, the guys to depend on in crunch time,
Mm-hmm.
and guys that play like the best defense also. Isaiah Livers has been one of the best defenders, like at all positions for his 4 years. And
Yep.
Franz Wagner, he's 6'8", like 215. I think he's put on even more weight. He might be up to 220, 225 now. So, yeah, they're going to depend on them a lot. You got Eli Brooks back. I'm not sure if he's going to start at point guard. He could. I know Juwan Howard trusts him a bunch. Austin Davis, Juwan Howard got him to come back for a 5th year.
Mm-hmm.
He was my guy last year.
Yeah.
Because every single time they put him in the game, he would just get buckets. Like for a 3 or 4 minute, if they didn't get open shots, they would throw it to Austin and he would get a bucket. And seeing him as a starter is going to be different. I'm not sure how well of a defender he'll be, but he'll be one of the main leaders on the team also. So that's interesting. They brought in a few transfers. Mike Smith from Columbia, he's a point guard. He averaged 22 a game in the Ivy League. You never know what Ivy League guys, how they transfer over to the big time.
Right.
So we'll see with him. And Shawnee Brown from Wake Forest, who I like a lot. He's a 2-guard who's a really good defender. He's a solid offensive player. He averaged like 12 for Wake Forest last year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be dependent on a lot. And then the freshman class is going to be dependent on a lot too. You got Hunter Dickinson, big 7'1", 7'2" guy. I forgot the name of the guard. I gotta look at the roster.
Talking about Jace Howard,
I'm not talking about Jace Howard.
Zeb Jackson.
Zeb Jackson is who I'm talking about.
Okay.
He was committed for Michigan for about over 2 years. He was the highest ranked player. He ended at Montverde in his senior year, and he had a really good year. He has a bunch of talent. He's a lefty. I think at some point during the season, he's going to end up being the starting point guard because he has so much talent when it comes to being able to run an offense and getting buckets at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's more to Trey Burke than Xavier Simpson. And I'm looking forward to seeing a player like that coming back to Michigan. But Jace Howard, Juwan Howard's son, is a freshman. I don't think he's going to play a whole bunch. He'll play like spot duty. He'll hit some shots, play some defense, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And I also think Brandon Johns coming back as a junior is going to play a big role. I think he's going to be the 6th man. Power forward. I think his jumper is going to improve. They can always depend on him to rebound and play some defense at the 4. So, yeah, like you said, this is going to be a really interesting team. It's a mix. Yeah. It's a mix and jumble of a whole bunch of guys. As soon as we leave here, I can't wait to see them play at 4.
Who do you think is going to be their starting lineup? That's what I'm most interested in.
From the beginning, I think it's going to be Eli Brooks, Zeb Jackson at the 2, Franz Wagner at the 3, Isaiah Livers at the 4, and Austin Davis at the 5.
Okay.
I think Zeb will be the 1 freshman starting. And they'll have Mike Smith from Columbia, the transfer. He'll be the backup point guard probably. And yeah, I think that'll most likely be the starting 5. I think the second lineup will mostly be outside of Brandon Johns, transfers and freshmen. But I think Zeb is going to get the start at the 2.
Okay. My big question mark for Michigan, I think, is as much as I don't like Xavier Simpson, is replacing Xavier Simpson. What I saw out of Eli Brooks last year, it doesn't give me confidence going forward.
He was the knockdown shooter. That was his job.
Yeah, and like
to
you
produce
said,
points.
he probably is not going to be the starting point guard all year, but to see it at the beginning of the season, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Now, I obviously don't follow transfers and stuff as closely as you do, so I'll be interested to see which one of these guys steps up for the team.
I'm expecting Shawnee Brown to be. He's going to make an impact on the team, whether it's on the defensive end or like giving them key buckets when they need them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mike Smith, he's a wild card. He's only 5'11". He's not much of an athlete, but he's a high level shooter. He's all points, and he averaged like 4 assists a game. So he's there for an offensive punch, but I'm not sure how much of a punch he's going to bring.
Yeah. And then on the other side, too, I think their bigs are a little bit of a question mark for me. I think, obviously, I mean, Isaiah Livers, we know what we're going to get. But
I think the center position is where it's.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like you said, Austin Davis last year looked really good.
But it was off the bench.
Yeah, he doesn't play all the time, so it'll be interesting to see what he gets with more minutes. Brandon Johns, every year I keep thinking he's going to, like, break through, and that's going to be his year. And it never necessarily seems to happen.
But last year was the first. He was a sophomore last year.
Yeah.
And it was his first time getting real time.
Yeah.
And I think he made a lot of strides. But I don't think he's the type of player to, like, become a superstar, really.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see. But, I mean, I think their big guys are going to be, like, Franz Wagner, Isaiah Livers, and then
Franz is more of a, like, combo guard forward.
Right, well, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
I think those are the, like, surefire pieces.
Yeah, those are the go-to.
But I think, like, their guard and, like, center position are kind of a little bit up in the air. But we'll see what happens. I'm also excited to see some college basketball and see where these teams go.
How are you feeling about those Spartans?
I'm feeling very similar to Michigan, honestly. It's really hard to go on from Cassius Winston. I think that's their biggest hole.
But this team is more talented than it was last year.
I agree. Giving Rocket Watts the reins, I think will be really interesting. That's what I'm most excited to see in this game today, because they're playing Eastern, which should be kind of a cake.
I'm gonna. Sorry to interrupt you real quick.
Oh boy.
I think Izzo's gonna play Foster Loyer as much as Rocket Watts to begin the season, just to keep Foster in there. Make sure he doesn't, like, fall off. He doesn't, like, stop caring. Like, I'm not getting a lot of time. I think he's, especially in this first game, they're playing Eastern. It's not like their games against Duke or against Notre Dame where they're gonna, like, need Rocket to be in there, like, most of the time. I think he's gonna play Foster a lot, just to get things rolling. Make sure he can be just as dependable as he needs him to be in these, just to start the season.
I'm not even.
You don't like that, do you?
I'm not gonna say it. No,
What is it? It might be something that needs to happen.
The thing that I like to bring up, though, is their point guard depth is awful. I mean,
well, it's Rocket, Foster, and then the freshman they brought in.
Yeah.
So is it really awful?
Yeah.
It's not a bunch of veterans. What do you mean awful?
You got Steven Izzo and Jack Hoiberg.
They're not gonna play much.
Exactly.
They're just on the bench. Every team has dudes that are on the bench.
I know. I feel like when you have Foster as your backup, I don't know. I don't believe. I'm hoping that their freshman, they can get something out of him. But we'll see. I don't know. It's a toss up. And then, like I said, it's another one of those years where Aaron Henry is going to have to step up. We've seen bits and pieces of it, but it's not fully come together. This needs to be the time.
I honestly think if he plays a little bit better than he did last year, I think it'll be fine. Because with Hauser there, to me, he should shoot the most shots. He should have the most threes by far. He should have most of the, like, high percentage of touches on offense. Aaron Henry shouldn't be one of the go-to guys on offense. He should take the shots that you get, but don't yet. He
I
shouldn't be
mean,
forcing
to
stuff.
be honest, I think this team is going to spread the ball around a lot.
Exactly.
Like I said, if Joshua Langford is healthy, the last time we saw him play, he was knocked down, and he was something special. People were excited about him. But we haven't seen him now in basically 2 years, so it's hard to say how good he's going to be coming off all these injuries. But you got Josh Langford, Aaron Henry, Joey Hauser, like you said, and Gabe Brown, who stepped up big last year at times. So I think any one of those guys can kind of be the scoring for this team.
Then you got Matty Sissoko, the freshman center.
Mhm.
Who, there's a lot of hype getting put on him.
Yeah.
Because he's a really strong, athletic kid who they can build a lot on him.
Yeah, and then you get another year out of Marcus Bingham Jr., who's he's long, athletic. He's still a little bit raw, but like it's there. You can see it. So they're in a similar boat with Michigan, where I feel like the middle of their lineup is pretty solid. Their guards and their bigs are a little bit questionable.
To me, this is, I think I said this last year, this team right here is like the best version of a Tom Izzo team.
Mm-hmm.
Like the years where Tom Izzo was getting 5-star talent and stuff, he doesn't know what to do with 5 stars. He's shown when he gets those types of talents, he tries to fit them into a system, and then they're only half as much as they really are because he can't get the most out of them.
Yeah.
This type of roster right here, if he can't get this roster to a Final Four, I don't know what to say, because this talent wise, it's not the 5-star like one and done guys. They all fit a role, but they have enough talent to also be like all Big Ten, a few All American guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Izzo should get a lot out of this team.
Yeah.
Really.
And if not necessarily this year, next year, 100% they have to make a run because of the talent, at least. Depending on obviously whatever's going on. Let's quickly just go over like the top 25. Like I said, Michigan 25th, Rutgers is 24, Ohio State's
Shouts
23.
out to Rutgers, man. I love the rest of their program.
Michigan State was 13. Illinois, Wisconsin. Illinois is 8. Wisconsin is 7.
Illinois and Iowa is the one.
Iowa's 5th.
I think
Big
the
10.
hype. I think the hype on Iowa is way too much.
Yeah.
It is way too, okay. They have Luka Garza. He's almost
Contender for player of the year.
He's almost unstoppable in the paint.
Mm-hmm.
They have some depth. I like Joe Wieskamp. I like Toussaint, the point guard they have. They have a lot of veterans.
They remind me.
But an Iowa team, do people really think this Iowa team can make a run for a championship? Really?
They looked good last year.
Honestly. You know what I'm talking about.
No, I get it.
Once you get to that Elite Eight Final Four place, you have to have those types of like high level players, like guys that are going to be in the NBA for a long time type players, to push you to the next level and win a championship. Does Iowa really have those types of guys? When was the last time a team like this won a championship? Let's phrase it like that.
I don't know. This kind of reminds me of like those Purdue teams, like from a few years ago, where it feels like guys like Luka Garza, Wieskamp. It feels like these guys have been around forever.
And Joe Wieskamp is only a sophomore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan Bohannon, he's a senior too, but like just a lot of these names, just I feel like they've been there.
But then, when was the last time a Purdue team lived up to the hype?
Exactly. No, I agree.
Yeah.
But that's just the comparison that I'm feeling.
That team with Carson Edwards in them, I think they got to the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
Carson Edwards got them as far as they could go.
Yeah.
And Iowa doesn't have a player like that. They can just explode and like win games for you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it. They're a really good team, but I think Illinois is better than them. I think Michigan State is better. I think Wisconsin could be better than them. Like 5 is too high in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, my favorite part though is like we saw at the end of last year, the Big Ten is going to be really fun again because
they're almost 10 deep.
as you can see, there's a lot of Big Ten teams that are in this, and I wouldn't be surprised if one other of the Big Ten teams stepped into top 25 at some point. Like last year, we saw, I think there was a total of like 9 teams that had made it in the top 25 at some point. Like it was crazy. You think of teams that just have good programs, similar like Indiana, Maryland, Minnesota. those teams could do something. I mean, we've seen them there before, so it wouldn't be a big surprise. Quickly, top 5 overall for the top 25. We got Gonzaga at number 1. Not really a surprise there.
They're stacked.
They're
They're so stacked.
They're just good every year. Baylor number 2, Villanova 3, Virginia 4, and like we said, Iowa is 5.
There's a player for Virginia I want you to look out for this year, Joey.
All right.
He reminds me of you.
Of me?
From what I've seen from your
Okay.
play style. His name is Carson McCorkle.
Oh,
He is a true freshman. He's a 6'3" shooter.
okay. 184.
Watch out for Carson McCorkle.
Very similar.
Yes.
Totally forgot that Virginia has Sam Hauser.
Yep.
They got the other brother.
Yes, sir.
Dang. Any other teams you want to talk about heading into this college basketball season?
I think Creighton could surprise a lot of people. Marcus Zagorowski is he's a top 3-point guard in the country to me. He's electric, but he's also an extremely smart player. He is a knockdown, 3-point shooter. He averages a good amount of assists. He doesn't turn the ball over much. He's the leader of that team. And he's a guy like Carson Edwards that when they get to the tournament, he can pull out a lot of games just going off for 15 straight points and just being on fire because he's that good of a player and can shoot that well. I think Texas Tech, they brought in a whole bunch of transfers. They have a really good freshman class and they have experience. Seeing the way they mix that team together is going to be really interesting. And they have Mac McClung too, who's cleared to play. So I'm really interested to see how he is. North Carolina should be good this year.
Should be.
They should be back to being really good. Their freshman class, they're sophomores now. The freshman class they have coming in is really good. They got a few top flight guards. All their big men are experienced, and they got a 5-star big man named Day'Ron Sharp who's getting a lot of hype. So North Carolina should be good again. And
what do you think about the Blue Devils?
I was just gonna bring up Duke. This is gonna be a team that people aren't accustomed to seeing over the past 5 or 6 years, because there's not one standout guy. And you've had your Kyrie Irvings, your Jabari Parkers, your Jason Tatums, your last year. I mean, you had Zion Williamson. Every year, there's been those 1 or 2 guys that stand out from the pack. This year, it's just a large group of really talented young guys that I don't know if one is going to stand out, but overall, they could be a Final Four team, potentially national championship team, because they have so much talent that they've accumulated over the past few years. And I want to see how Coach K coaches this team, because he's relied on superstars getting the job done a lot, and he's gonna have to really coach this team, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they only have 3 seniors on the roster, so they're really young, and they're not. I mean, usually a Duke team is young, but usually have 1 or 2 guys that are that veteran stay.
They have 4 or 5 veterans on this team.
Yeah,
Matthew Hurt. Last year I put a lot of hype in him, but he didn't end up being a superstar. I think this year he'll be one of their main offensive focuses. And then we'll look out for Jalen Johnson and Jeremy Roach. They're both true freshmen. Jeremy is a guard. Jalen Johnson, he was their highest rated recruit. He's a 6'8", 215 monster athlete. He should have a lot of highlight plays.
Any surprise team that you want to pick out?
I think UCLA could surprise a lot of people. Last year, they almost won the Pac-12 last year. People don't know that. They went on a run with a bunch of scrappy guys that weren't extremely highly recruited and just gutted it out. Mick Cronin, I thought he would be a complete bust at UCLA, and what he did last year showed me that when you're that good of a coach, you can make it happen. And UCLA could shock a lot of people. I also think Wisconsin could possibly win the Big Ten and shock a lot of people. Last year, they won the regular season title, but I think people are forgetting about it again. They have Iowa, even though Wisconsin is ranked at 7, people have Iowa ranked ahead of them. I think Wisconsin could be a lot better.
Brad Davison.
Isn't he gone? I'm pretty sure he was a senior last year.
Yeah, no.
Brad is gone. But yeah, they brought in a really good freshman class, and as always, they have veterans to rely on that are going to get the job done. So yeah, Wisconsin and also Tennessee, because their last recruiting class and this one coming in are full of high level talents. Remember the name Santiago Vescovi.
I probably won't, but okay, I'll try.
He came over from Italy last year and was a freshman guard for Tennessee. He didn't get to play like the first half of the season, but then they put him in. It took a few games, but he became like the lead guard of that team instantly. He's a knockdown lefty shooter. He's only like 6'1", but he's extremely crafty, and he's fun to watch.
Malik?
Tennessee could win the SEC.
Brad Davison is back. That's
not good to know for me.
One of my friends, that's one of his boys. So
Okay.
that's the only reason I bring it up. He always talks about Brad Davison highlights.
Any teams you're excited for before we get out of here?
Not in particular. Like I said, I've been kind of out of the loop for a lot of college stuff. I've mostly just followed Michigan and Michigan State, so I'm excited to see those guys, to see what they do with these new kind of regimes, and just the Big Ten in general. Like I said, last year the Big Ten was super exciting, I think, for myself. Trying to just keep up with all the teams that were making noise from the Big Ten. I think it's cool to see people not talking about like the ACC and stuff as much necessarily. And I would like to see like teams like Duke and stuff not do as well. So I'm just excited. College basketball seems like every year that there's more and more surprise teams that we see. So that's just kind of what I'm excited for, but nothing in particular per se. So we'll have to see as the season goes on, that I might latch on to somebody, but we'll see. Unfortunately, next week we won't have a show. I'm going to take some vacation, even though some people might think that quarantine is vacation. It is not. It is not. So I'm going to take some vacation. So not next week. And then we're going to try to do some shows, possibly over Zoom or something. With the recent Michigan pandemic updates and stuff, we're going to shut down the studio for a few weeks and see how everything goes. So we'll try to do the show through Zoom or something like that. We'll try to figure it out so we can keep up with things. But I'm excited. We'll try to get into more NFL as those playoffs are actually kind of rolling around the corner. Lions aren't going to be a part of them, but that's fine. But we got basketball season starting up, so that's going to be great. I'm excited. College football season also winding down. So there's a lot to talk about. Exciting time. But this has been Views from the Sideline. I'm your host, Joey Tysick. My partner, Malik Hill. We'll see you guys next time.
You want me to give an extremely short Michigan football summary for the season?
Yeah, because we'll have to have a whole episode on that.
Disappointment, although I didn't. Yeah, we'll have
You
to do
expected
a whole
more
episode.
than this.
We'll have to do a whole episode. Cade McNamara looks all right. That's all I have to say.